Hello, and welcome to Tiffany Teaches Tuesday. So, today, my discussion is going to be about renting again. This week, my patience is being tested dealing with renters. And I've been doing this for 21 years, and property management is the area in which I am the most proficient in. It is the area where I have the most knowledge and experience in. And I got into this because I am good at managing things. I manage time very well, and I manage people very well. But managing people is one of the most difficult and challenging tasks. People think they want to be a boss until they become one. And I say that in essence of just having to deal with people on a continuum basis and managing different personalities and different issues within property management. It can be very stressful. And some of these stressors can be reduced by ensuring that you provide your tenants with the proper documentation. So I've gotten a few new clients, and a lot of their problems that have occurred is because of their relationships with their tenants. I am nice until I'm not. I'm friendly until I'm not. I'm a very helpful, giving person until I'm not. I'm a very direct person. I mean what I say and I say what I mean, and I'm a very factual person. I don't deal well sometimes with the gray area. It's either is or it isn't. Like, I don't need all the extra stuff in between. Just tell me the facts, and we can work from there. And we can find a resolution to deal with any issue that you have that you bring to me that I can, if I can address it. So, one of the clients that I received this month has a tenant that they are having the difficulties with, who needed to have some village inspections done, and the landlord didn't address these issues in a timely fashion. So in the meantime, the tenant has not been maintaining the property, and the landlord has gotten 2 tickets. So the first question I asked the landlord is, could you please send me a copy of the lease that you have? Then he says, oh, I don't have a clear copy of it. Well, let me explain this to you all. Leases are legal documents. And it is very important that you have an initial lease with your tenant, and ensure that you have the proper lease that is in accordance to your township, city, or village ordinance. You cannot have a lease that says you can do something from another city that is not allowed in your city. So make sure, if you're going to get into the investment holding business, understand the rules and protocols and requirements of whatever area that you are deciding to have these properties at. Because that can be the difference of you making profits or having a lot of loss. So when you get the lease, read it. Reading is fundamental. Read the lease. It might be long. Chicago lease is right here. I have a copy. And it is a whole lot of little words. You see that? It's only 4 pages of a lot of little print. But those 4 pages I've read. In addition to, I've read the ordinance that comes along with these 4 pages. They have a brief summary of the ordinance of things that you can and cannot do in Chicago to your tenants. So I tell my tenants, before you come for me, be ready for my clap back. Because anytime I address you with something, is because it's in the lease. Like I had to tell a tenant yesterday, your lease clearly states that I can come into your unit anytime that there's an emergency issue. I would like you to be there, but what you're not going to tell me is I can't come in. There's a leak coming from your unit, and I need to address that issue. Why wouldn't you want to let me in and address the leak? Like, that's crazy. But you have people that say, well, you need to look at the lease. So the other tenant that the gentleman brought that was not maintaining the lawn, he said it's in her lease that she's supposed to maintain the lawn. Well, it's kind of difficult for me to enforce that particular issue if I don't have a lease to see what you said that they should or should not do. Now, in addition to your lease, you can have what they call addendums, extra notations, notes, because everything you have to follow by what the village or ordinance of the township or city is. But you can add different things to your lease. Now, let me explain this to you. When you add additional information, you must stay in accordance to the Fair Housing Act. You cannot discriminate against people in your rules and regs that you put together, okay? You must not discriminate. And understand, if you ask one tenant or ask one tenant to do something or cannot do something, you have to ask all of your tenants the same thing. So you can't tell one tenant because you like her that she don't have to shovel her snow and remove her trash out the back, but you finding the other tenant on the next floor, in the next unit for the same thing, because now you're being unfair. So just keep yourself out of discrimination, fair housing discrimination court. Just be fair to people. Do what you're going to do to everybody. So an example, when we're doing our tenant screening, we require that our tenants that apply for, our applicants that apply for one of our units, provide their children's most recent report card if they have any school-aged children. Now, a lot of people think that we're doing too much. And I always tell those applicants who feel that we're doing too much, that's fine. Just go somewhere where they're not doing enough. Because I cannot screen a minor. Can I do a background check on a minor? But I can request academic performance, because academic performance, believe it or not, it comes into line with behavior. And how do I know this? Because I'm a school counselor. And guess what? Every year as a school counselor, I receive notices when they want to get their little SSI check, asking for us to say that their child is in good academic standing. So if you can do that for any other organization to receive your government benefits, I can ask for that information to be provided to me to live in one of my units. And I found that tenants who have provided me with their child's academic performance are better tenants than those individuals who didn't provide it. And that's from over a course of time before I started asking for this. And how I came about asking for this. Now watch this. I'll give you an example and you're going to see why I did what I did. So I had a unit lady. I got the tenant from a referral of another tenant of mine that was an excellent tenant. She referred her cousin. The cousin did the background check. Her cousin came back fine. Everything worked out. The cousin had a 16-year-old daughter who just had a baby. So she's like, oh, she don't go to school because she just had a baby. Cool. That's okay. You can have baby 16. People do it. That had nothing to do with me. But the daughter never went back to school. That part right there. Secondly, the daughter boyfriend that moved in with them ran havoc in my building. They were robbing the tenants. They were selling drugs out the building. They became a complete nightmare. But I wouldn't have been able to even find any of this information. I couldn't find the information because guess what? It's a youth. How would I screen a youth that doesn't go to school? Now, had I asked her parent for her most recent report card, as a minor, you are able to stay in school until you have a child. So that means she would have had a most recent report card, which would have showed what her academic performance is. I just want to see if your child go to school every day or not. And I want to see if your child is on the verge of getting kicked out. That's all I need to know. I don't care about your child being a scholar or anything of that nature. I just need to know your child is performing so that I don't have to put you out because of your child. Because one thing about real estate in Chicago, any issues that you have in your building that are a crime, the courts hold you accountable for not knowing. It is your responsibility to know and control those matters. So when you draft your lease, you need to put clauses in your lease, i.e., if you don't want your property to be rented out as an Airbnb, you need to write that in your lease. Because people are renting out nice places and making them Airbnbs. If you don't want your tenants to put holes in your wall, write that in your lease. If you're going to charge a fee when they get locked out, write that in your lease. If you require that they mow the lawn, pick up the trash, clean the halls, write that in your lease. Everything that you need or want, like I have some clients who have non-smoking buildings. They don't allow smoking in a building. You write that in your lease. I have a client, he doesn't allow smoking in the building, and he makes you put, if he found out, if he requires that you put a 2-month deposit down. And if he finds that you're smoking, he makes you all found out that you're a smoker. He even makes you put down an extra month deposit, because people are like, oh, I'm not gonna smoke in the house, for a cleaning fee of the smoke if you decide to smoke in the house. So everything that you need to know about what that you need to ensure that you safeguard your properties, and things that come in your mind that you want to put in place to ensure that your property is maintained, that you can have access, that the tenants do what they're supposed to do, put it in your lease. So Chicago has a lease because we have certain ordinance. And then in my suburban areas, I have another lease for the suburban areas. And I forgot to print out a copy of that. So I use leases for the area in which I'm servicing those particular properties that are in line with what they ordinance or village requirements are. I also, when I take on a property in an area that I've never managed, I call the building department and ask what their requirements are. I call their housing department and ask what their requirements are, to make sure that I abide by the law and ensure that I don't break the law or not meet anything that require my clients to get a violation or a ticket. So I hope this has helped someone. And I will tell you also, it's required that in Chicago, you give a tenant a copy of a lead disclosure and lead-based paint disclosure, and a disclosure saying that you provided that to them, and radon disclosure. Anything less than 3 units, you have to get a disclosure, because this form of gas and toxin come out the ground and it can be deadly. So you have to give a disclosure in regards to that. So I give those to my tenant, as well as I give them a mold disclosure to let them know that they elected to rent this property without any influence from us, and we did not represent that there was any mold in the property, and if they did lease it with mold, they did it on their own will. I didn't influence them to do so. I'm just gonna go through some things on Chicago lease. In Chicago, subleasing is not allowed in Chicago. That means if you move out and you move in your cousin to sublease from you, then that's illegal. You're not supposed to sublease. It also states in the Chicago lease that you're supposed to maintain the property in a decent, orderly fashion. It also states in Chicago lease, for right to access the property, we have only to give a 2-day notice. We have a right to access the property by giving a 2-day notice. They have something called a holdover. Holdover is when a tenant is liable for double the rent if they keep the place when they should have moved out. What else is in Chicago leases that I feel is important? Possession. Possession is given to the property not when they sign the lease, but when you give them keys and they give you monies. That is how possession is obtained, through keys. So the tenant, in order for the tenant to move out, they have to give you the set of keys you gave back to them. And that's the same in real estate. You can buy your property, but you don't get possession until you get keys to actually access that property when you're purchasing and buying a property. Security deposits. Chicago has some very strong security deposit policies. However, most people get in trouble because people think security deposit is rent. It is a deposit, which means you need to deposit into the bank and don't touch it. If you put it in the bank and don't touch it, you don't get in trouble for it. You can't take money out the deposit to make repairs on the building. You can take money out of the deposit when the tenant moves out. So I'm gonna give you an example, and then I'm gonna wrap this up. If a tenant, say for instance, broke a window and they couldn't afford for the window to be fixed, you have to fix the window, because you can't have a broken window, because it's going to give you a violation with the city ordinance for the window being cracked. You fix the broken window, you pay for it. You add that, you should have a ledger, the expense for fixing the window. When the tenant moves out, You take that out of their security deposit unless they pay you back before they move out for the damages. But you can't take the money for the damages upon them moving out of the before they move out the unit, because it's a deposit to be held when they move out. You cannot use security deposits to pay their last month's rent. That is not legal. Security deposits for damages. Now, if you want to do that, something for last month rent, you can collect the first and last month rent deposit, or you can. I have this deposit I give which is called an eviction deposit. And what that eviction deposit is, if I have to evict you for failure to pay your rent, I will utilize your funds to do so. So if you move out without paying your last month's rent, I will use those funds to cover your last month's rent, because that'll be the funds I use to evict you to get that funds back for the last month's rent that you didn't pay. And I told you about notating if you have an Airbnb or not. Tenants are allowed to rekey their units. Any tenant can rekey their unit if they want to. It's legal. But if they rekey their unit, put new locks on, they have to give the landlord copy of the key. You cannot lock the owner of the property out of their own property. You do not own it. You have to give them a key. And if they come and you did it, they can just come and change the locks and put new locks on it, call out a locksmith and let themselves in, because they own the property. You're just renting it, borrowing it. You put a code on your home. You have the right to put an alarm system on the property in which you reside for temporary time. However, you have to give the owner of the property an access code for the alarm. So you cannot secure your property and not give the owner access to it. If you feel that unsafe or uncomfortable with your owner, then you might want to rent some other place. So I hope that this has helped someone today, and I will see you all next week, Tuesday. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye.